My name is Yvonne Kleinmann. I'm a specialist in Eastern European history at Martin Luther University at Halle, and I'm also the director of the Aleksander Brückner Center for Polish Studies, an interdisciplinary center based in Halle and Jena. And my main fields of research are Russian imperial history, also Jewish history of Eastern Europe, and Polish history spanning the periods between the Middle Ages and more or less the present day up to memory cultures in Polish society today. In a systematic sense, my interest is on legal history and anthropology, especially constitutional history. And my earlier foci are urban history, history of migration, and also the interaction between religious communities. In an interdisciplinary interest, I'm delving into entanglements with philology, with legal studies, also with sociology and ethnography. At the Research Center Global Disconnect, my project is communicating constitutions, and I'm working on the communication between constitutions on the example of Polish constitutions from the Middle Ages through the present day. And I'm not doing a classical history of constitutions in a dogmatic legal studies sense, but from a historic perspective, focusing on questions of cultural history and entanglement, global entanglement, European entanglement of Polish constitutional development. And my main question is how to narrate the history of Polish constitutions in a sense that includes sovereign Polish constitutions, but also constitutions imposed on Polish society by other powers during the centuries. So this is crucial as it's a problem in Polish constitutional historiography. On one hand, Polish historiography is based mostly in legal studies, which renders constitutional history very normative, dogmatic. And for historians who are interested in more recent cultural history and also in transnational history, this is not satisfying. So I'm trying to integrate these two currents, like normative aspects of constitutional history, but also legal culture and the international entanglements. So I'm trying to make a patchwork. One is to present, to write an outline of all the relevant constitutions from the 15th century through the present day. And my understanding of constitution is a very broad one. It's not about the modern understanding of democratic standard of constitutions, but it's about the basic order of Polish society in these different periods of time. And I have to give a disclaimer, it's no encyclopedic history of Polish constitutions, but it's an overview of the main constitutional texts. And departing from these outlines, I'm following certain basic questions. And for example, one of these questions is how do constitutional history in Poland develop during the 19th century, even though there is no Polish state. So it's under the partition powers of Austria, the Habsburg Empire, the Russian Empire, and Prussia, or the German Reich. And so how to bridge this gap? And one question I have is, for example, how does women's vote enter the Constitution of 1921? And you can answer this question only if you follow the women's movement and several other social movements during the 19th century. So I'm trying to integrate the Polish sovereign constitutions with the imperial constitutions, or also lack of constitutions in imperial times, and to ask about women's vote is one way to do it. Another way is connecting to cultural history, to ask about the representation of constitutions in iconography. And I've brought this item. This is not 19th century, but the present day. And what you can see on this t-shirt is a Konstytucja, and the TY means in Polish you, and ja means I or me. And essentially this means the constitution is you and me. If you compare this to the German Constitutional Court, or the understanding of German constitutions, we normally imagine the judges entering the courtroom. And this is very different from this approach, from people who say the constitution is you and me. So I'm trying to integrate these material documentation or material understanding of constitutions into my narrative. And this is a present day example, but you can also take a very popular canvas, like a picture from the early 19th century, from Kazimierz Wojciechowski, that shows the passing of the Constitution of 3rd of May. This is the first, not only Polish, but also first European written constitution. And with the partition of powers, there were no fundamental rights implemented in this constitution, but it was, let's say, a modern constitution on its way, or in process. And on the picture, you see the proceedings in the room of the Senate in Warsaw Castle, and the most important figures on this picture are the people on the gallery. And that's not those deciding, but it's the people from Warsaw bourgeoisie, and also some minor nobles. There are also women among them. And what's happening in the room is quite far away, and the monarch, the king, is very much in the background. So I'm trying to integrate these pictorial documentation of constitutions into this constitutional history. So this is just two examples of how I'm proceeding. So it's a combination of, let's say, basic knowledge, like the state of the art on these constitutions, and to introduce new methodological approaches to constitutional history. As in my project, there are aspects of global entanglement. I've already mentioned the pictures, and for example, the Wojciechowski picture of the passing of the Constitution of 3rd of May is iconographically based on a picture by David, a French artist, who painted the National Assembly in 1789, and the proceeding or the start of constitution making in France. And so this is a clear connection in the pictures, like they refer to this act, and everyone who is more or less familiar with the pictures of the time knows that this is related to the revolutionary process in France. So this is one example of connection, and you can also, excuse me, you can also take another event, 1794, a revolutionary step by Tadeusz Kościuszko. He was a Polish noble, also a military man, and before entering into the Polish debate, he participated in the American War of Independence. And he came back and proclaimed it as a step to oppose partitioning powers, liberty of peasants. So that's another connection. And this is late 18th or early 19th century, and you have the Napoleonic connection, the Duchy of Warsaw. So you have Napoleonic rule in Poland, but also conflicts connected to that, as Napoleonic rule doesn't really fit the social context of Polish society. So already at this time, a disconnection starts, or let's say conflict between different understandings of political rule and participation. But the connectivity is through the 19th and even 20th century, the Code Civil, like the civil code of Napoleon, that not only lasts in the law, but also lasts in the memory of people. So there's a connectivity, but there are also aspects of disconnectivity. If I bridge the gap to the 20th century, we have the long period of state socialism. And during this time, of course, there is connectivity with global issues, but they are mostly directed to the East or perhaps to African countries. But contact or connectivity with Western countries, Western democracy is very much reduced. And it's a question of conflict. And in the times of the Cold War, it's necessary to oppose Western ideology, but at the same time, it's very ambivalent, because if you disconnect or if you want to stress the contrast between the political systems, at the same time you are connected again. So the project has all kinds of aspects of connectivity, but also disconnectivity, and they are happening at one and the same moment, and sometimes they have their sort of emphasis in different times.